My name is Madison Harrison, and 5 years ago, I married into one of California's wealthiest families. Last month, at my mother-in-law's 60th birthday party, I was banished to the servants' table in front of 200 guests. But the woman I'd stopped to help on the roadside that evening? She turned out to be a billionaire with a $50 million contract, and one very specific clause about character. Before I tell you how a muddy dress saved my life, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Share in the comments below. Now let me take you back to that night when everything changed. The Harrison family owned half of Beverly Hills, or at least that's what Victoria liked everyone to believe. My mother-in-law had inherited a real estate empire worth $300 million, and she never let anyone forget it. Their mansion sprawled across 8 acres, with a driveway longer than most streets and a fountain imported piece by piece from Italy. I'd met James at a charity event 5 years earlier. I was there representing my kindergarten class, hoping to secure art supplies. He was there because his mother demanded it. When he asked me out, I thought I'd found someone who saw past surfaces. I was wrong. "Your salary wouldn't even pay for our pool maintenance, dear," Victoria had said during our engagement dinner, her Van Cleef and Arpels necklace catching the light as she laughed. The other guests had chuckled politely while I pushed food around my plate, my $40,000 teacher's salary suddenly feeling like a personal failure. James never defended me. Not once. The morning of Victoria's 60th birthday, I'd overheard her on a conference call. "The Chen Foundation is considering us for their 50 million education initiative," she'd said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "Once we secure this, the Harrison name will be untouchable in philanthropic circles." I'd thought nothing of it then. Just another deal, another feather in her cap, another reason for her to look down at my humble contributions to actual children's education. The party was set for 8 o'clock. Black tie, naturally. Victoria had sent me a dress. Beige, shapeless, clearly chosen to make me invisible. I'd bought my own instead, a simple navy blue piece from a department store sale. It was the most expensive thing I owned at $200. I should have known that dress would never make it to the party intact. 3 weeks before the party, Victoria had invited someone special to lunch, Sophia Wellington. I'd walked into the sunroom to find them laughing over champagne, their heads bent together like conspirators. "Madison, dear," Victoria had said, her smile sharp as crystal. "Meet Sophia. Her father runs Wellington Industries, 500 million in assets." Sophia had stood, all 5'10" of her, wearing a cream Chanel suit that probably cost more than my car. "So lovely to meet James's wife," she'd said, emphasis on the word wife, like it was temporary. "Sophia just returned from Switzerland," Victoria continued. "She's joining her father's board, 28 years old and already a vice president. Isn't that impressive?" The comparison hung in the air, unspoken but deafening. Me, 32, teaching finger painting. Her, 28, running boardrooms. "James and Sophia practically grew up together," Victoria added, watching my face. "Before he met you, of course. We always thought, well, timing is everything, isn't it?" James had walked in then, and his face had lit up seeing Sophia. They'd embraced just a moment too long while Victoria smiled like a cat with cream. I'd excused myself to the bathroom and stared at my reflection. My store-bought clothes, my sensible teacher's haircut, my naked fingers except for the modest wedding band James had insisted was classic rather than cheap. That night, James had been distant. "Sophia's doing amazing things," he'd said in bed, "really making a difference in the business world." "I make a difference too," I'd replied quietly. 23 5-year-olds learned to read this year because of me. He'd patted my hand absently. "Of course, honey. That's nice." Why hadn't I seen the writing on the wall then? The drive to Victoria's mansion usually took 40 minutes from our apartment. Yes, apartment. James had insisted we live modestly while his trust fund matured. I'd left at 7, giving myself extra time in my 10-year-old Toyota Camry that James called embarrassingly practical. 20 minutes into the drive, I saw the Mercedes S-Class on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking in the drizzle that had started. An elderly woman stood beside it, waving her phone helplessly in the air. I pulled over. I couldn't not pull over. "Oh, thank goodness," she said as I approached. She was perhaps 70, wearing a simple but elegant pantsuit. My driver had a family emergency, and I insisted he go. Now the car won't start, and I can't get a signal. "Let me call you a ride," I offered, pulling out my phone. The rain was picking up, and I could feel my carefully styled hair beginning to fall. "You're getting soaked, dear," she said, concerned. "Please, sit in your car." But I stayed, holding my jacket over her while we waited for the Uber. She'd tried to refuse, but I insisted. When the car arrived 15 minutes later, my dress had wet spots, and my shoes were muddy from the roadside. "Please let me reimburse you," she'd said, pulling out her wallet. "Absolutely not, just glad I could help." She'd studied me for a moment. "Real kindness appears when no one's watching," she'd said quietly. "What's your name, dear?" "Madison Harrison." "Thank you, Madison. I won't forget this." As her Uber pulled away, I'd checked the time. 7:35. I'd be late, and I looked like I'd been caught in a storm. Victoria would be furious. But what else could I have done? Leave an elderly woman stranded? I had no idea I'd just changed my entire life. I arrived at 8:31. The valet's eyes widened, seeing my Toyota pull up between a Bentley and a Lamborghini. The rain had stopped, but the damage was done. My hair hung limp, my dress had water stains, and my shoes squelched with each step. The marble foyer was packed with guests in designer gowns and custom tuxedos. The crystal chandelier above cast light that seemed to spotlight every flaw in my appearance. Conversation stopped. 200 heads turned. Victoria stood at the center in a gold Versace gown, holding court with the mayor's wife. She saw me, and her expression transformed from practiced elegance to theatrical horror. "Madison?" Her voice carried across the entire space. "What in God's name?" "I'm sorry, Victoria. There was an emergency." "An emergency?" She glided toward me, her heels clicking like a countdown. "More important than my 60th birthday? More important than the respect you owe this family?" James materialized beside her, his face flushed. "Jesus, Madison, you look like you crawled here." "Someone needed help." "Someone always needs help with you," Victoria interrupted, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The perpetual saint, aren't we? Always putting strangers before family." The crowd murmured. Phones appeared, subtle but present. I recognized 3 society bloggers among the guests. "How dare you disrespect my birthday like this?" Victoria's voice rose another octave. "This is a $500 a plate dinner, not some kindergarten potluck." Someone laughed, then another. The sound rippled through the room like dominoes falling. Sophia appeared in a stunning red Valentino dress, looking between Victoria and me with perfectly feigned concern. "Oh my, what happened?" But I saw the smile playing at her lips. They'd been waiting for this, an excuse, an opportunity. Victoria already had her next move ready. Victoria raised her hand, and the room fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption." She turned to me with icy precision. "Madison, you've made your choice clear. You prioritize strangers over family. Appearance means nothing to you, and you have no respect for the standards of this household." She gestured to the corner where the catering staff had set up a small table for their breaks. "You clearly belong with your own kind. The help. That's where you'll sit tonight." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even in this world of casual cruelty, public banishment was shocking. The mayor's wife covered her mouth. The society bloggers typed furiously. "Victoria," I said quietly, "please don't do this." "It's already done." She turned to the head waiter. "Please escort Mrs. Harrison to the service table. Perhaps she'll feel more comfortable there." James stood frozen beside his mother. Our eyes met for 1 second, one moment where he could have intervened. Instead, he looked away and whispered something to Sophia, who touched his arm sympathetically. The walk to the servants' table felt like a funeral march. Every click of my muddy heels echoed. The catering staff looked mortified, shifting to make room while avoiding eye contact. I sat between a young server named Miguel and the coat check girl, their discomfort palpable. From across the room, I watched Sophia slide into my assigned seat next to James. Victoria clinked her champagne glass, ready to make a toast, when the major domo appeared at her side. "Madam, your special guest has arrived, Ms. Eleanor Chen." Victoria's face transformed instantly from triumph to gracious hospitality. "Eleanor, finally!" But when the woman walked through the door, my heart stopped. It was her, the woman from the roadside. Before Eleanor entered, Victoria seized her moment. She clinked her crystal champagne flute again, commanding attention. "Before we welcome our honored guest," she began, her smile radiant, "I want to share something special with all of you, my dear friends who've supported our family through every season." She paused dramatically, one hand on James's shoulder. "Change is never easy, but sometimes it's necessary. Some marriages are simply mismatches from the start. When people come from different worlds, different values, different standards, well, love isn't always enough." My stomach dropped. She wasn't really doing this, not here, not now. Which is why I'm thrilled that James has reconnected with someone who truly understands our world. Sophia Wellington has graciously agreed to be patient while certain legal matters are resolved. Sophia blushed prettily on cue, her hand finding James's. He didn't pull away. The room erupted in polite applause while my world crumbled. The coat check girl beside me whispered, "Oh my God." "To new beginnings," Victoria raised her glass, "and to partnerships that make sense." Everyone drank. Everyone except the service staff at my table, who sat frozen in secondhand mortification. That's when Eleanor Chen walked in. She moved through this crowd with quiet authority, her simple black dress and pearl necklace understated, but undeniably expensive. Victoria rushed to greet her, arms extended. "Eleanor." Perfect timing. We were just... But Eleanor walked past her, past the mayor's wife, past the society bloggers, past James and Sophia, straight toward the servants' table, straight toward me. The room held its collective breath as one of the wealthiest women in California approached the corner where I sat with the help, my muddy shoes hidden under the tablecloth, my humiliation complete. Or so I thought. If you've ever felt judged for your job or where you come from, leave a comment below. I read every single one. The next part of this story shows exactly how karma works, sometimes in ways you'd never expect. And if you're watching from a big city or a small town, share with me where. I want to know who this story reaches. Are you Team Madison already? Or are you waiting to see what happens next? Let me know before we continue, because Eleanor Chen is about to flip this entire room upside down. Before Eleanor could reach me, Victoria intercepted her path, desperate to regain control. "Eleanor, you must be confused. Our table is..." "I know exactly where I'm going, Victoria." Eleanor's voice was calm but firm. She continued toward me, but Victoria grabbed her arm. "Please, there's been a misunderstanding. That's just... She's not..." Victoria's composure cracked. "Give me one moment." She rushed to my table, her facade of elegance gone. Reaching into her clutch, she pulled out a folded document and slapped it in front of me. The header was visible: "Petition for dissolution of marriage." "Sign it," she hissed, leaning close enough that only I could hear. "Sign it now, quietly, and you can leave with some dignity. Refuse, and I'll make sure no school in California will hire you. I know every board member, every superintendent. Your career will be over." The head waiter tried to disappear. Miguel stared at his shoes. The coat check girl held her breath. "Victoria," I said steadily, though my hands shook. "You can't." "I can and I will." Her lawyer, Mr. Brennan, had materialized beside her. "The papers are prepared. Sign now or face a very public, very ugly divorce where we'll question your mental fitness. How many kindergartners' parents will trust you then? James had drifted closer, typing on his phone. The message appeared on mine. Just sign, please. Make this easier for everyone. For everyone. Not for us. For everyone else. Mrs. Harrison. Eleanor's voice cut through the tension. Is there a problem here? Victoria straightened, switching masks instantly. Just handling a small family matter. Nothing that concerns our $50 million discussion. Eleanor looked at me, then at the papers, then back at Victoria. I see, family matters. How interesting. Perhaps we should discuss that 50 million now, Victoria said, trying to steer Eleanor away. My husband has prepared the boardroom. In a moment. Eleanor's eyes hadn't left my face. Madison? That is your name, isn't it? I nodded, unable to speak. Madison Harrison? She pressed, and something in her tone made Victoria freeze. You know her? Victoria's voice pitched higher. Eleanor smiled, the kind of smile that preceded earthquakes. Oh, yes. We met earlier this evening. Didn't we, dear? The room had gone completely silent. Even the waiters had stopped moving, trays suspended midair. 200 guests leaned in, sensing blood in the water. This woman, Eleanor announced, her voice carrying perfectly, stopped in the rain to help me when my car broke down. She ruined her dress, missed your party's start time, all to make sure a stranger was safe. Victoria's face cycled through emotions, confusion, calculation, damage control. How charitable of her. She does fancy herself a saint. Interesting word choice, Eleanor said. Saint. Because I've been researching your family's charitable foundation all week. The Harrison Family Trust, established to promote compassion and service, correct? Of course. We're devoted to... To what, exactly? Eleanor walked to the center of the room, addressing everyone now. To banishing good Samaritans to servants' tables, to public humiliation as entertainment? She pulled out her phone, and suddenly the wall-mounted TV screens, installed for Victoria's birthday slideshow, flickered to life. I had an interesting experience tonight, Eleanor continued. My dashcam caught all of it. Should we watch together? The video began playing, me pulling over in the rain, running to help, holding my jacket over Eleanor's head while getting soaked. Victoria had gone pale. That was you? That was me, and now, let's discuss that $50 million. Eleanor walked past Victoria and came directly to me. Before I could stand, she pulled me into an embrace that smelled of subtle perfume and expensive fabric. This is the angel who saved me today, she announced, her arms still around my shoulders. The servants' table had become center stage. Victoria practically ran over, her heels clicking frantically. Eleanor, please, let's not be dramatic. Madison can join us at the main table now. James, get your wife. No. Eleanor's voice was steel. If Madison sits here, I sit here. She pulled out a chair next to me. In fact, I prefer this table. These people actually work for a living. The coat check girl gasped. Miguel dropped a fork. The society bloggers were practically vibrating with excitement. This would feed their columns for months. But the 50 million, Victoria stammered. Ah, yes, the 50 million. Eleanor smiled. Tell me, Victoria, do you even remember what you signed 2 weeks ago? Of course. The preliminary agreement for the Harrison Education Initiative. And did you read it? All of it? Victoria's lawyer, Brennan, had gone pale. He started scrolling frantically through his phone. Clause 7, Section 3, Eleanor recited from memory. The family representative must demonstrate genuine compassion and moral character, as observed during the evaluation period. Evaluation period? Victoria's voice cracked. The 30 days before final funding, which ends tonight. Eleanor checked her Patek Philippe watch. In about 2 hours, actually. She stood, addressing the room. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just witnessed a masterclass in character revelation. The Harrison family, asking for $50 million to help underprivileged children, just banished a kindergarten teacher to the servants' table for helping a stranger. The irony hung in the air like a blade. Allow me to properly introduce myself, Eleanor said, her voice filling the silent room. Eleanor Chen, CEO of Chen Foundation International. We manage $2 billion in charitable assets globally. Several guests pulled out their phones, Googling frantically. The mayor's wife whispered, "Oh my God, she's on the Forbes list." For those unfamiliar, Eleanor continued, we're rather particular about our partnerships. We don't just write checks. We investigate. We observe. We test. Victoria swayed slightly. James caught her elbow. The Harrison Education Initiative seemed perfect on paper, Eleanor said. A prominent family, established foundation, all the right words about helping disadvantaged youth. But words are cheap, character is expensive. She turned to me. Madison, what do you do for a living? I I teach kindergarten in Compton. Salary? I flushed. 40,000 a year. And you stopped to help a stranger, knowing it would make you late to this important event? Anyone would have. No, Eleanor interrupted. They wouldn't. I stood on that roadside for 20 minutes before you stopped. Dozens of luxury cars passed by. Mercedes, BMWs, even a Rolls-Royce. None stopped. She pulled out an iPad, swiping to a document. This is interesting. The Harrison Foundation's mission statement: to elevate education through compassion and service. Yet their own daughter-in-law, an actual teacher, is treated like, what was your word, Victoria? The help? This is a family matter, Victoria said desperately. It has nothing to do with your character, with your values, with your fitness to manage $50 million meant for children's education. Eleanor laughed, but it wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was disappointed. It has everything to do with it. Brennan finally looked up from his phone, his face ashen. Victoria, we need to talk. Now. Before any private conversations, Eleanor said, let's be transparent. Isn't that one of your foundation's core values, Victoria? The TV screens flickered again. This time, the dash cam footage was longer, clearer. You could see me struggling with my umbrella in the wind, finally giving up and just holding my jacket over Eleanor's head. You could hear our conversation. Please, let me reimburse you, Eleanor's voice from the video. Absolutely not. Just glad I could help, my recorded voice replied. But your dress, your evening, they're just things. You needed help. The video continued, me waiting with her, making sure the Uber driver knew the destination, even giving him $20 from my wallet to ensure he'd take good care of her. That $20, Eleanor said to the room, was probably her lunch money for the week, but she gave it anyway. Then came the part I hadn't known was recorded. After I'd gotten back in my car, Eleanor had made a phone call. Run a background check on Madison Harrison, her voice said clearly. Full evaluation. I want to know everything by tonight. The room stirred. This had been planned. You investigated me? I asked, stunned. I investigate everyone connected to our potential partnerships, Eleanor replied. You'd be amazed what I learned. Shall I share? Victoria stepped forward. That's an invasion of Madison Harrison, Eleanor read from her iPad. Teaches at Compton Elementary, 5 years running, spends personal funds on supplies, runs a weekend literacy program, unpaid, has been nominated for Teacher of the Year 3 times, denied each time after anonymous complaints to the school board. She looked directly at Victoria. Anonymous complaints that traced back to IP addresses registered to Harrison Industries. The room exploded in whispers. Brennan, the Harrison family lawyer, had gone from pale to ghostly. Mrs. Harrison, we need to review the contract. Immediately. Review what? Victoria snapped. It's a standard charitable agreement. No, Eleanor said, pulling out a leather folder. It's not. Mr. Brennan, would you like to explain Clause 7 to your client, or shall I? Brennan's hands shook as he pulled up the document on his tablet. Clause 7 is, it's a moral character provision. Read it, Eleanor commanded. Out loud, for everyone. Brennan cleared his throat. The recipient family representative must demonstrate, during a 30-day evaluation period, genuine compassion and ethical behavior consistent with the Foundation's stated mission. Violation of this clause results in immediate termination of funding and forfeiture of board positions. Forfeiture of what? James finally spoke, his voice cracking. Board positions, Eleanor repeated. All of them. The 3 museum boards, the hospital board, the country club board, all contingent on this funding deal. Victoria snatched the tablet from Brennan. You never told me about this. You said you didn't need to read the fine print, Brennan replied weakly. You said it was just a formality. Eleanor smiled. I believe you also signed an additional document, the one about public representation? More frantic scrolling. Brennan found it. Any public action taken by the family representative that contradicts the Foundation's values during the evaluation period constitutes breach of contract. And tonight? Eleanor gestured around the room. 200 witnesses to public humiliation, discrimination, and cruelty, all directed at an actual educator, the very person your Foundation claims to champion. But I didn't know you were evaluating us, Victoria protested. That's the point of character tests, Mrs. Harrison. They only work when you don't know you're being tested. Eleanor opened her folder and pulled out the original contract, Victoria's signature bold at the bottom. Section 7, paragraph 3. Let me read the full text for our audience. She cleared her throat dramatically. The family representative must demonstrate genuine compassion, particularly toward those of lesser economic status, as this reflects the true spirit of charitable work. Any act of public discrimination, humiliation, or cruelty during the evaluation period will result in immediate funding termination and recovery of any preliminary funds already distributed. Recovery? Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. The $5 million we already advanced for setup costs, Eleanor confirmed. Due within 30 days of breach. The room was so quiet you could hear the champagne bubbles popping. One of the board members from the hospital stepped forward. Victoria, is this true? It's a misunderstanding. Is it? Eleanor turned to the crowd. How many of you witnessed Mrs. Harrison banish her daughter-in-law to the servants' table? Hands slowly raised. 20, 50, 100. Even Sophia raised her hand, probably thinking it would distance her from the fallout. And how many heard her announce that Madison's marriage was ending because she wasn't good enough for this family? More hands. The society bloggers were recording everything. Mrs. Chen, one of them called out, are you really withdrawing $50 million? The contract is clear, Eleanor replied. The Harrison family has violated Clause 7.3 as of, she checked her watch, 8:47 p.m. All funding is terminated. She pulled out her phone and typed quickly. My legal team is sending the formal notice now. Mrs. Harrison, you'll receive it within 60 seconds. Victoria's phone buzzed, then Brennan's, then James's. The subject line was visible on James's screen. Immediate termination, Harrison Foundation funding. Now, Eleanor addressed the room like a prosecutor, I'd like to call some witnesses, not for legal purposes, we have plenty of evidence, but for moral clarity. She pointed to a young waiter. You, sir. What's your name? Miguel, ma'am. Miguel, how long have you worked for the Harrisons? 3 years. Ever seen anything like tonight? Miguel glanced nervously at Victoria. Eleanor stepped between them. She can't fire you. After tonight, she won't be able to afford you. Please, speak freely. It's not the first time. Mrs. Harrison regularly humiliates people she considers beneath her. Last month, she made a gardener eat his lunch in the rain because he was too dirty for the servants' quarters. Others began speaking up. The coat check girl shared how Victoria had thrown a coat at her face. A valet described being forced to park in the sun for hours because Victoria didn't like his accent. Then, unexpectedly, one of the board members spoke. I'm resigning from the Harrison Foundation board effective immediately. Robert, you can't, Victoria started. I can and I am. Two more board members stood. We're out too. Eleanor turned to the crowd. The Chen Foundation will be establishing a new education initiative. We'll need board members who actually value teachers and education workers. Any volunteers? A dozen hands shot up. Excellent. And Madison? Eleanor turned to me. How would you like to run it? I nearly choked on air. I'm sorry, what? Director of Education Initiatives, 800,000 a year to start, full benefits, housing allowance, and a team of 50. You'd oversee programs for underprivileged schools across California. Victoria made a strangled sound. You can't just. She's nobody. She's a kindergarten teacher. Exactly, Eleanor smiled. She's perfect. Wait, Eleanor held up her hand. I believe in second chances. Victoria, I'll give you 5 minutes. Apologize to Madison. Genuinely, publicly, and completely. Acknowledge what you've done. Make amends. Do that, and I'll reduce the penalty to 25 million instead of 50. The room held its breath. $25 million saved with an apology. It should have been easy. Victoria's face went through a series of transformations: rage, calculation, desperation, and finally, settling on defiance. Apologize? To her? She laughed bitterly. For maintaining standards? For trying to protect my son from a gold digger who trapped him with her fake innocence? Mom, James said weakly. No, James. I've held my tongue for 5 years. This little nobody waltzed in here with her public school degree and minimum wage job, thinking she could infiltrate our family. I did what any mother would do, protected our legacy. Your legacy? I stood for the first time since being banished to this table. Your legacy is cruelty wrapped in designer clothes. How dare you? I'm not finished. My voice was steady, calm. 5 years of silence had built up to this moment. You sabotaged my teaching nominations. You tried to get me fired. You told my students' parents I was unstable, all because I had the audacity to love your son despite having less money than you. And look how that turned out, Victoria spat. He's already moved on to someone worthy. I looked at James standing there with Sophia, silent as always. You're right, he has. And you know what? They deserve each other. Eleanor checked her watch. That's 5 minutes. No apology. The full 50 million termination stands. I will not apologize for maintaining standards, Victoria said, chin high. Then you'll maintain them alone, Eleanor replied, and significantly poorly. Victoria just made a $50 million choice. What do you think happens next? Comment your prediction before watching the rest. If this story reminds you of someone in your life, feel free to share, but don't tag them. We don't need more drama. Karma has its own timeline. The next part reveals something about Eleanor that nobody saw coming, and trust me, the Harrisons are about to lose much more than just money. Are you ready for the biggest twist? Let me know where you're watching from first. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Eleanor pulled out her phone and hit speaker. Legal team, execute termination protocol. Full recovery, all penalties, immediate effect. A crisp voice responded. Confirmed. 50 million funding withdrawn. 5 million advance recovery initiated. Notices sent to all affiliated boards and institutions. Also, Eleanor continued, alert the press. Full transparency on why the Harrison Foundation lost funding. No! Victoria lunged forward, but Eleanor stepped aside gracefully. It's done. Eleanor's phone pinged repeatedly. Oh, look! The Chronicle wants a statement, the Times too, and… Oh my, the Kindergarten Teachers Union wants to know if they can share your story, Madison. Around the room, phones began buzzing. The society bloggers were posting in real time. One showed me her screen. Harrison Foundation loses 50 million for bullying teacher. The hospital board president approached Victoria. I'm calling an emergency meeting. Your position is under review. You can't. My family built that wing. With donated money, money that's now dried up. He turned away. The country club president was next. Your membership is under evaluation. We have standards about conduct. One by one, the dominoes fell. The museum boards, the charity committees, the social clubs, all distancing themselves from the radioactive Harrison name. James finally spoke up. This is insane. You're destroying us over one dinner party? No, Eleanor corrected. You destroyed yourselves. I just documented it. She turned to the crowd. Let this be clear. The Chen Foundation doesn't just write checks. We invest in character, and the Harrisons have proven they're morally bankrupt. Her phone rang. She answered, listened, then smiled. Excellent. The Foundation's board has approved. Madison, the offer stands. Will you accept? All eyes turned to me, still sitting at the servants' table in my stained dress. Before I could answer Eleanor, Sophia Wellington stepped forward, extracting herself from James's side. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, she said formally. My father asked me to inform you that Wellington Industries is withdrawing from all joint ventures, effective immediately. What? Victoria shrieked. Your father and my husband have been partners for 20 years. We're partners, past tense. Sophia actually looked relieved. And James? This engagement charade? We're done. I only agreed to make my father happy, but I'm nobody's second choice or business arrangement. She walked over to me. Madison, I'm sorry. I knew what they were planning, and I should have warned you. You deserve better than all of this. James stood abandoned in the middle of the room, looking between his mother and his vanishing future. Sophia, wait. No, I'm done being a prop in your mother's social climbing. She turned to Eleanor. Ms. Chen, Wellington Industries would be honored to contribute to your new education initiative, whatever Madison needs. The room was in chaos. Board members were on phones, resignations flying. The mayor's wife was actively pretending not to know Victoria. The society bloggers had enough content for a year. Then the head butler, Stevens, who'd worked for the Harrisons for 15 years, approached Victoria with an envelope. My resignation, madam, effective immediately. Stevens, you can't. I can, and so is most of the staff. He gestured to the servers who were removing their aprons. We've tolerated your abuse for years because we needed the work, but Ms. Chen has offered us all positions at living wages, with respect. Eleanor nodded. My foundation needs good people, people who understand service and dignity. The Harrison Empire wasn't just crumbling, it was being systematically dismantled, piece by piece, connection by connection. Eleanor extended her hand to me. Madison, will you join me on stage? You shouldn't be hidden in a corner. I stood, my muddy shoes squelching slightly, and walked across the room. Every step felt like shedding years of humiliation. The crowd parted, and for the first time in 5 years, they looked at me with respect, not pity. Ladies and gentlemen, Eleanor announced once I reached the stage, I present the new Director of Education Initiatives for Chen Foundation International. Madison Harrison will oversee $50 million in education funding, focusing on underprivileged schools and supporting teachers who make real differences. This is ridiculous, Victoria screamed. She's nothing, she's nobody. She doesn't even have the right degrees. She has something better, Eleanor replied. She has character, integrity, and actual teaching experience. Tell me, Victoria, when did you last set foot in a public school? Silence. Madison has spent 5 years in the trenches, teaching children everyone else wrote off. She's spent her own money on supplies, her weekends on unpaid tutoring, her career fighting against the very obstacles you put in her path. Eleanor handed me a folder. Your contract, take your time reviewing it. The salary is $800,000 base, but with bonuses and benefits, you'll clear $1 million. There's a housing allowance, car allowance, and full education funding if you want to pursue advanced degrees. My hands shook taking the folder. That was 25 times my current salary. Also, Eleanor added, we'll need to relocate you immediately. There's a penthouse near our offices, unless you have reason to stay in your current situation. I looked at James, who stood frozen between his collapsing mother and his disappearing future. No, I said clearly. No reason at all. Eleanor took the microphone again, her voice softer now. I need to share something with all of you. 40 years ago, I was a teacher too. Third grade, East Los Angeles. 35 kids, no supplies, making $18,000 a year. The room was transfixed. I fell in love with a man from a wealthy family. They treated me exactly like the Harrisons treated Madison. Worse, actually. They paid people to lie about me, got me fired, destroyed my reputation. I lost everything. She paused, looking directly at me. But a mentor believed in me, gave me a chance. I went to night school, started a small tutoring business, grew it into an education company, sold it for millions. Then I started investing, building, growing. Today, the Chen Foundation has $2 billion in assets. She walked closer to Victoria, who had sunk into a chair. I know what it's like to be dismissed for teaching children, to be told you're worthless because you chose service over profit. That's why I created the character clause, to prevent people like you from using charity as a social accessory while crushing the very people who do the actual work. She turned back to me. Madison, you reminded me of myself tonight. Not when you helped me, though that was remarkable, but when you sat at that servant's table with dignity, when you didn't beg or plead or compromise your values. That's real strength. This is all very touching, Victoria said bitterly. But you've destroyed a family legacy over petty revenge. No, Eleanor corrected. You destroyed it with your choices. I just held up a mirror. And Madison? She was never your family's problem. She was the only thing giving it any real value. Brennan, the Harrison lawyer, had been frantically reading documents on his tablet. His face went from pale to green. Victoria, he said shakily, there's more. More? Her voice was hollow. Clause 12.5. Breach penalties. You owe $5 million immediately, but there's also performance penalties. Another $10 million for egregious violation of moral standards. $15 million total? James gasped. Plus legal fees, plus interest if not paid within 30 days. Brennan looked ready to faint. And there's a publicity clause. The Chen Foundation has the right to publicize the reason for termination. Full transparency. Eleanor nodded. The press release goes out Monday morning. Every major outlet will know exactly why the Harrison Foundation lost funding. You'll ruin us. Victoria stood, swaying slightly. You ruined yourselves. I'm just ensuring everyone knows it. Eleanor pulled out another document. Oh, and this is interesting. According to your foundation's bylaws, losing a major funding source triggers an automatic audit. Federal investigators will examine every transaction, every donation, every expense account. Victoria's husband Richard, who'd been silent all evening, finally spoke. Victoria, what did you do? Nothing. Everything was legal. Legal and ethical aren't the same thing, Eleanor observed. How many donation funds went to personal expenses? How many charity galas were really just birthday parties in disguise? The FBI forensic accountant on Eleanor's team had been thorough, very thorough. Also, Eleanor continued, you're permanently banned from applying to any Chen Foundation partners. That's 300 organizations worldwide. The Gates Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Trust, all off limits. She handed Brennan the full penalty documentation. Your client has 30 days to pay $15 million. After that, we pursue assets, including that lovely mansion. James finally moved, walking toward me with his hands outstretched. Madison, please. We can work this out. Don't let them do this to our family. Our family? I laughed, but it wasn't bitter. It was free. James, we were never a family. I was an accessory you were too weak to defend. That's not true. I love you. No, you loved the idea of rebellion. Marrying beneath your class felt edgy until it got hard. Then you chose comfort over courage. Every single time. He grabbed my hands. Please, talk to Ms. Chen. Make this stop. I pulled away. You stood there while your mother banished me to the servants' table. You let her announce our divorce before even discussing it with me. You texted me to sign papers instead of standing up for our marriage. I was trying to keep the peace. You were being a coward. I reached into my purse and pulled out my own envelope. I brought these tonight, actually. Divorce papers, already signed. I was going to give them to you after the party. The room gasped. Even Eleanor looked surprised. You were leaving anyway? James looked stunned. I'd been planning it for months, saving money, looking for apartments. Tonight just made it easier. I handed him the papers. Your mother was right about one thing. We're from different worlds, but not the way she thinks. My world has integrity, yours has none. Madison, James, your mother needs you more than I ever did. You two deserve each other. I turned to Eleanor. I accept your offer. When do I start? Tomorrow, if you're ready. I've been ready for 5 years. As James stood there holding divorce papers, the entire service staff began moving. One by one, they stood up from their stations and walked toward the servants' table where I'd been sitting. Stevens, the head butler, spoke first. Mrs. Harrison, we want you to know something. We've been documenting everything for 3 years. He pulled out a thick folder. Every insult, every humiliation, every withheld paycheck, every illegal overtime demand. We were waiting for the right moment. Miguel added, You treated us with respect, always. Said please and thank you. Remembered our names, our kids' names. The coat check girl, Sarah, stepped forward. Last Christmas, you gave us bonuses from your own money when Mrs. Harrison forgot. We knew you couldn't afford it. You didn't have to, I started. We wanted to, Stevens interrupted. He turned to Victoria. Madam, this is my formal notice of a class action lawsuit for wage theft and hostile work environment. 23 staff members, 5 years of violations. Another folder appeared. Our lawyer has been building this case pro bono. He says it's worth approximately $3 million in damages and penalties. Victoria's legs gave out. Richard caught her, his face ashen. Also, Stevens continued, we've all accepted positions with the Chen Foundation, every single one of us. Your household has no staff as of tonight. Eleanor smiled. I believe in hiring good people and treating them well, something the Harrisons never learned. The staff formed a line, and one by one, they handed Victoria their resignation letters. 23 letters piled on the table where I'd been banished. We've been waiting for karma to visit Mrs. Harrison, Stevens said to me. Thank you for bringing her to the door. Eleanor's assistant, a sharp young woman with an MBA from Wharton, stepped forward with a tablet. Should I read the final tally? Please do, Eleanor said. Immediate losses for the Harrison family, $50 million in withdrawn funding, $15 million in breach penalties, $3 million in estimated wage theft settlements. Total, $68 million. She continued. Secondary losses, 5 board positions at approximately $200,000 per year in benefits and connections. Estimated value, $1 million annually. Country club membership, $50,000 annually. Social capital, incalculable. For Madison Harrison, base salary of $800,000, housing allowance of $10,000 monthly, vehicle allowance of $3,000 monthly, full benefits package worth $200,000, education fund of $100,000, first year total compensation, $1.3 million. The math was staggering. In one night, I'd gone from $40,000 to over $1 million, while the Harrisons had lost nearly $70 million. But here's the best part, Eleanor added. Madison's program will fund 20 schools in underprivileged areas. That's 10,000 children who will get art supplies, books, technology, and support. Your cruelty, Victoria, just changed 10,000 young lives for the better. She pulled up one final document. Oh, and Madison? There's a signing bonus. $500,000. Consider it back pay for 5 years of staying strong under impossible circumstances. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. $500,000 was more than I'd make in 12 years of teaching. The Harrison estate has 6 properties, the assistant continued. To pay the penalties, they'll need to liquidate at least 3. The market value— Stop! Victoria's voice was broken. Please, just stop! But the numbers kept coming, each one a nail in the coffin of their empire. 6 months later, I stood in my new office overlooking downtown Los Angeles. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the mountains, and pictures of my kindergarten students on the desk, the ones who'd made it all worthwhile. Madison? My assistant knocked. The Times is here for your interview. The reporter was one of the society bloggers from that night. Ms. Harrison, how does it feel to be running the largest education initiative in California? Humbling, I said honestly. But right. And the Harrisons? I'd kept tabs, not from spite, but from a need for closure. Victoria works as a receptionist at a property management company. She's learning what it means to earn respect rather than demand it. And James? Dating someone his mother doesn't approve of, a public school teacher, ironically. Without his trust fund, he's working at a bank, middle management. Any regrets? I thought about it. No. That night taught me something valuable. When people show you who they are, believe them. And when life gives you the chance to choose between dignity and comfort, always choose dignity. One last question. Do you ever talk to Eleanor Chen? I smiled. Every day. She's not just my boss. She's become my mentor. She taught me that kindness isn't weakness, it's the ultimate power. Later that afternoon, I visited my old kindergarten class. 23 5-year-olds ran to hug me, their new tablets and art supplies scattered around the room, all funded by the Chen Foundation. Ms. Madison, they shouted, you came back. I'll always come back, I promised. And unlike the promises made in the Harrison mansion, I meant it. Looking back now, I realize that muddy dress was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because it led to wealth, though financial security is life-changing, but because it revealed truth. The truth about James, who chose comfort over courage. The truth about Victoria, whose cruelty was just fear in designer clothing. The truth about myself, that I was stronger than I knew. Eleanor and I often discussed that night. You could have been bitter, she told me recently. You could have sought revenge. Revenge would have made me like them, I replied. I wanted to be better. The Chen Foundation's education initiative has now helped 30,000 children. We've funded art programs, libraries, technology centers, and most importantly, teacher support. Every educator in our program gets a living wage, supplies, and respect. Victoria sent me a letter last month. Not an apology, she's not there yet, but an acknowledgement. She wrote, "You were right. I measured worth in dollars when I should have measured it in character." I didn't respond. Some bridges are meant to stay burned. James sent divorce papers back signed within a week. No contest, no drama. He kept the apartment. I kept my dignity. Fair trade. But here's what I want you to remember. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. Every time someone makes you feel small, remember that they're revealing their own limitations, not yours. Kindness isn't weakness. Service isn't shameful. Teaching isn't lesser than trading stocks or inheriting wealth. The people who do the real work, teachers, nurses, caregivers, we're the ones who actually change the world. One muddy dress, one act of kindness, one woman who recognized character over class. That's all it took to change everything. Thank you for staying until the end of this story. If you've ever been underestimated and then proved them wrong, share your story in the comments. I read every single one and reply to the most inspiring. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And remember, your value doesn't depend on how others perceive you. You are worthy, you are enough, and sometimes the universe conspires to prove it in the most unexpected ways. Stay strong, stay kind, and never let anyone make you feel less than. Until next time.